Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Scarcity Principle, aka your brain is a hoarder. Picture this. You're scrolling through a dating app, and someone messages you every 5 minutes with paragraphs about how amazing you are. Now imagine someone else views your profile, says nothing, and vanishes into the digital void. Which one are you checking Instagram to stalk at 2 a.m.? Yeah, the ghost. This is your brain on scarcity, and it's the same reason people lose their minds over limited edition sneakers they'll never wear. When something feels rare or hard to get, your primitive caveman cortex starts screaming, "Must have," like a toddler in a toy store. Economists call this the scarcity principle, the psychological phenomenon where we assign higher value to things that seem limited or unavailable. In the dating world, a woman who's indifferent or aloof accidentally triggers this ancient mental alarm system. She's not texting back? Clearly, she's too valuable for peasants like you. Your logical brain knows this makes zero sense, but your emotional brain is already writing your wedding vows. The less attention she gives, the more your neurons decide she must be worth the hunt, because obviously anything easy to obtain is garbage. It's the same reason you want the last slice of pizza even when you're full. Basically, your brain's economic calculator is broken and it's pricing people like Bitcoin during a bull run. Number 9. Intermittent Reinforcement, Slot Machine Syndrome. Some psychologists basically compared modern dating to a casino, and honestly, they weren't wrong. There's this thing called intermittent reinforcement, which is a fancy way of saying, sometimes you win, mostly you lose, but that occasional win keeps you hooked like a gambling addict. Imagine you're playing a slot machine. If it paid out every single time, you'd get bored in about 4 minutes. If it never paid out, you'd walk away. But if it pays out randomly, sometimes after 2 tries, sometimes after 50, you'll sit there pumping quarters until you're living in your car. Your brain releases dopamine not when you get the reward, but when you're anticipating it. The unpredictability is literally more addictive than the prize itself. Now replace that slot machine with someone who sometimes texts you immediately with winky faces and sometimes leaves you on red for 3 days. Your dopamine system lights up like a Christmas tree because your brain can't predict the pattern. She smiled at you last Tuesday but walked past you today without making eye contact? Jackpot unlocked! Your neural pathways are now obsessed with figuring out the pattern, except there is no pattern. This is why the treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen nonsense actually has some psychological weight behind it, which is disturbing because it basically means human attraction operates on the same principle as training pigeons. We're all just pigeons in hoodies pecking at levers for random treats. Number 8. The Rejection-Attraction Loop. Pain equals gain. Here's something deeply uncomfortable. Your brain sometimes confuses emotional pain with passion. There's actual research showing that when people experience rejection or uncertainty in romantic situations, it can intensify their feelings of attraction. It's called frustration attraction, and it's basically your nervous system having an identity crisis. Think about the last time you wanted something you couldn't have, not just in dating, but anything. That new gaming console sold out everywhere, the restaurant with a 6-month wait list, the friend group that seems just slightly out of reach. The wanting becomes its own kind of high. When someone rejects or ignores you, your brain interprets that emotional discomfort as intensity, and intensity gets mislabeled as, "This must be important." There's even evidence that physiological arousal, increased heart rate, adrenaline, nervousness, gets cognitively attributed to attraction. It's called misattribution of arousal, which is science speak for your body doesn't know the difference between fear, excitement, and horny. That anxiety you feel when she doesn't text back, your confused meat computer thinks you're falling in love when really you're just stressed. So, congratulations. Evolution designed you to be attracted to people who stress you out. Romance is just trauma with better lighting. Number 7. The challenge mentality. Video game logic. Your entire life, you've been taught that things worth having require effort. Good grades? Study. Six-pack abs? Gym. Career success? Grind. So naturally, your brain applies this same logic to humans, which is where everything goes spectacularly wrong. When a woman shows clear interest and makes herself available, some part of the male brain files her under tutorial level and immediately loses interest. But a woman who seems disinterested, hard to read, or emotionally unavailable, boss fight, achievement locked. Your achievement-oriented psychology, the same system that kept your ancestors motivated to hunt woolly mammoths, kicks into overdrive. This is compounded by centuries of cultural messaging that romance should be a conquest, a prize, a challenge overcome. Movies, books, songs, they all glorify the chase. Nobody writes epic ballads about, "She texted back promptly and communicated her feelings clearly." Where's the drama? Where's the quest? So men end up treating dating like Dark Souls, convinced that if it's not painfully difficult, it's not worth doing. The irony is that this guarantees you'll end up in relationships that feel like work, because you literally selected for difficulty. You wanted a challenge, and brother, you got one. Enjoy your lifetime achievement of emotional unavailability. Number 6. Ego protection theater. Narcissism's opening act. Let's talk about the elephant in the room wearing a "I'm totally confident" t-shirt. Insecurity. Specifically, the kind that dresses itself up as pursuit of a challenge when really it's just ego protection with extra steps. When someone is clearly interested in you, it forces you to be vulnerable. If things go wrong, you can't blame them. The risk of rejection becomes real and personal. But if you're chasing someone who's indifferent, built-in excuse. She didn't reject you. She's just playing games or doesn't know what she wants. Your ego gets to stay intact because you never actually put yourself on the line. There's also the validation angle. If you win over someone who initially seemed uninterested, it feels like proof of your worth. You took someone from zero interest to interest. Therefore, you must be amazing. It's ego fuel. Meanwhile, someone who liked you from the start, that doesn't validate anything. Maybe they're desperate. Maybe they have low standards. Maybe it doesn't count. This is narcissistic logic wearing a disguise. You're not pursuing her because you actually like her. You're pursuing the identity boost of being the guy who could. She's not a person. She's a trophy that reflects your self-image. Essentially, you've turned human connection into a mirror, and you're just making out with your own reflection while she's standing there confused. Number 5. Fear of intimacy, masquerading as preference. Some men chase unavailable women not despite their unavailability, but because of it. And this is where things get uncomfortably therapeutic. If you consistently find yourself attracted to people who don't reciprocate, who are distant, or who keep you at arm's length, you might be subconsciously self-sabotaging to avoid actual intimacy. Real emotional intimacy is terrifying. It requires vulnerability, honesty, the risk of being fully seen and potentially rejected, not for your dating profile, but for your actual human self. Chasing someone who ignores you solves this problem beautifully. You get to feel like you're trying at relationships without actually being in one. Psychologists call this counterdependency, where your fear of closeness makes you gravitate toward people who can't or won't get close. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can tell yourself you want a relationship, while your behavior patterns guarantee you'll never have to face one. The chase becomes the goal, because finishing the chase would mean dealing with all the messy, scary parts of actually being known by another person. It's the romantic equivalent of saying you're training for a marathon while exclusively running on a treadmill in your garage. Technically, you're doing the thing, but you've eliminated any possibility of actually crossing a finish line. Your commitment issues are just wearing a "I like the chase" costume for Halloween, and it's been Halloween for 6 years. Number 4. Biological wiring gone wrong. Caveman software, modern problems. Evolution is basically a drunk programmer who wrote your mating software millions of years ago and hasn't issued an update since. Back in the prehistoric times, resources were scarce, competition was everywhere, and mate selection actually mattered for survival. Men who were persistent, competitive, and motivated by the challenge of winning a mate were more likely to pass on their genes. Fast forward to now, you don't need to fight off rivals with a club or prove you can provide shelter and mammoth meat, but your brain is still running that ancient program. That neurological wiring that says competition equals value and difficulty equals worthy hasn't caught up with Tinder and shared Netflix passwords. There's also the biological reality that historically men have had to compete for female attention more overtly than the reverse because of differing reproductive investments. Eggs are expensive, sperm is cheap. This basic biological asymmetry created psychological adaptations. The male brain evolved to be attuned to signals of female selectivity and to interpret disinterest as a signal that this particular female is high value and thus worth pursuing. But here's the glitch. This system was designed for a world that no longer exists. You're applying Stone Age mate selection psychology to someone who is ignoring you because she's busy, not interested, or just didn't see your text. Your internal caveman is screaming, "Alpha female must pursue," while she's literally just living her life. Your firmware is about 200,000 years out of date, and the universe isn't issuing patches. Number 3, the phantom prize effect, the grass is greener syndrome. There's this cognitive bias where humans consistently overvalue things they don't have while devaluing things they do have. It's why you want to order something new at a restaurant but end up jealous of what the person next to you got. In dating, this manifests as the phantom prize effect, the belief that the person who isn't interested must be hiding some incredible qualities that justify the chase. Your imagination fills in the gaps. That woman who barely acknowledges your existence, your brain has already written a novel about her depth, her mystery, her different from other girls' essence. Meanwhile, the woman who's actually interested and available gets fully seen. Flaws, normalness, human imperfection, and your brain files her under meh. This is confirmation bias on steroids. You notice every tiny positive interaction with the unavailable person. She made eye contact once in 2019 and use it as evidence of hidden connection. You ignore or downplay positive interactions with available people because they don't fit the narrative. The unavailable person becomes a projection screen for your fantasies, while real people offering real connection get dismissed for being, well, real. It's the psychological equivalent of ignoring the perfectly good sandwich in your hand while staring longingly at what might be in a locked fridge across the street. Could be gourmet, could be moldy leftovers. You'll never know, but your brain has decided it's definitely gourmet. You're not chasing a person. You're chasing a fiction your brain wrote to avoid dealing with reality. Number 2, social proof and pre-selection. Monkey see, monkey want. Humans are pack animals wearing business casual. We look to others to determine value constantly, often unconsciously. This is called social proof, and it's why restaurants with lines seem better than empty ones, why everyone suddenly wants the same ugly sneakers, and why you definitely need that thing you saw an influencer use once. In dating, this manifests as pre-selection, the phenomenon where a person becomes more attractive simply because others find them attractive, or in this case, because they seem desired or hard to get. If a woman is ignoring you, your primitive social brain interprets this as a signal that she has options, that others want her, that she's socially valuable enough to be selective. Meanwhile, a woman who shows clear interest, your brain's social calculator assumes she must not have better options, or she wouldn't be settling for you. It's brutal and stupid, but it's how the machinery works. We've essentially turned human connection into a stock market where perceived demand drives value more than actual compatibility. There's even research showing that men rate women as more attractive when they're pictured with other men or described as being in demand. Your attraction literally increases when you think other people want her. It's not about her, it's about beating the imaginary competition for social status points. You're not falling for her personality. You're falling for the leaderboard in your head that says she's winning and you need to win bigger. Number 1, the control illusion, main character syndrome. And here we arrive at the most disturbing part, the illusion of control. When someone ignores you, it creates a problem, and humans are addicted to solving problems. Your brain genuinely believes that if you just say the right thing, do the right gesture, become the right version of yourself, you can fix this and make her interested. This is protagonist thinking. You've cast yourself as the lead character in a romantic story where persistence and personal growth win the day. Every movie you've seen supports this narrative. The guy who doesn't give up, who proves himself, who eventually breaks through her defenses and wins her heart. You're not being creepy, you're being determined. You're not ignoring her clear disinterest, you're fighting for love. Except real life isn't a screenplay, and she's not a prize to be unlocked with the correct sequence of actions. Her disinterest isn't a puzzle for you to solve. It's information you're choosing to ignore because accepting it would mean relinquishing control of the narrative. The chase gives you purpose, agency, a quest. Accepting that she's just not interested means accepting that some things are outside your control, that you can't logic or effort your way into someone's heart, and that you might need to face the actual vulnerable work of finding someone who chooses you without a 6-month siege. You're not chasing her. You're chasing the fantasy that you're in control of your own romantic comedy, when really, you're just the guy who can't take a hint in someone else's restraining order paperwork. That's all for today. I'll be making more videos like this, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them.